Hello everyone, this is Hers and you are watching WPF World. In this video, we will cover what is MVVM, what is benefit of using MVVM pattern. Also, we will learn how to implement INotify properties and its benefits. We will learn how to implement ICommand interface and how to bind the command to the view. So first, let's understand what is MVVM. MVVM stands for Model View Model. It's an architectural pattern used in WPF application to achieve clean and organized code. In MVVM, we have three main components. The model, which represents our data and business logic. The view, which is user interface that users interact with. And the view model, which acts as bridge between model and view. MVVM brings several benefits to WPF development. It prompts a clear separation of concern, making our code easier to maintain and test. There are several benefits of using MVVM pattern. We can achieve clean code separation. It will make our code base more manageable, improve testability, enabling easy unit testing, and also enhance UI responsiveness. MVVM keeps your code organized and easy to maintain. It allows you to change the look of your app without messing up data and logic. Now we will understand all these three components. What is model? The model represents the data and business logic of the application like calculation, validation, and data processing. It is responsible for data manipulation, storage, and retrieval. What is view? The view is what you see and interact with on your Windows screen. It is button, text box, image, and everything that makes up the visual part of your application. When we click on button, type something in text box, that is user interaction. The view's job is to display the data from the model and capture user actions. Now, what is view model? The view model acts as intermediary between the model and view. It contains the presentation logic, exposing the data from the model to the view, as well as handling user interaction from the view. The view model does not have direct knowledge of views. Instead, it uses data binding to communicate with the view. Now we will see the practical example, how to implement MVVM pattern in our WPF application. Now let's jump into Visual Studio. In last video, we have learned how to make our WPF application modern using Mayhap Metro NuGet package. Now, as we know, in MVVM pattern, we need three things: model, view, and view model. So for the view, we have this view where we have text box, button, and other controls. Now we have to create view model and model. This is the view. All the XMLs are view. Now we'll create view model. View model is nothing but C# class. Now let's create it. Click on add and click new item, or you can click class. We can give any name, but if we give any random name, then later point of time we will not able to understand is it view model of this or some other view. So when we are creating view model, we should make sure that view model name should start with the view name. So now I will copy this name and now I will create a class and I will say main window. But if we say main window, it may be class or XML, right? So here we can differentiate view from view model by adding view model. Okay, so that we will understand later point of time. This is view model for main window. So I will click on add. Okay, now we have created one class which is view model for main window. It is clear, right? Now we have to create model. So what I will do, model is also a C# class. We will create class and again we will say name with main window, and as it is model, so we will say model and I will click on add. Here if you see, we have view model and model here. But what if we have multiple views and view models and models? If we have all these things here itself, then it is little difficult to find view model and models. So for that, we need to structure our project. How to do that? So for the model, we will create folder called models. Okay. So here all the models will be there in this models folder. For the view model, we will create view models folder. Okay. And for the view, I will create views folder. Why views or why models or why view models? Because we will have multiple views, models or view models, right? So we say it as models, views and view models. Now I will move model to models folder. Okay. And view model to view models folder. Okay. This is our view. So I will move it to views folder. Okay. Now if we run, it will throw the error. Let's see. Right. Why? See, unknown build error, could not find this path. Right, because if you see app.jml, we have main window.xml for startup URI attribute, right? So here we have to change because here we have moved this main window.jml to views folder. So here we have to add views. Okay, now let's run. See, now it is working fine, right? I will remove this image from the button. I will remove the image from the delete button. So where is that image? This is the one. I will comment it. Now let's run and see if image is there or not. It should not be there. Let's see. Okay, now we have created project structure for MVVM pattern. What is benefit of MVVM? We already learned. So now we have to add all the property or data inside the model. For this application, we need the properties like employee ID, name, date of birth, address, like all these property we need in model. So I will add all the property inside the model. Okay, so I will go to main window model. I will add the property. So based on the property type, we have to create the property. So for EMP-ID, we need int. So we will say int EMP-ID. Okay. In the same way, we have other property like employee name. For employee name, we have to use string data type because it is string. So I will change it to string. Okay. In the same way, we will add all the property. For the country, we have multiple items, so we will make it as list of string. Okay. Here I will add some country. Like India. Yes, like that. Okay. So I am not going to save this countries in the database, so I will move it to view model. This is only for showing in the combo box. So I will move it to view model. Here I will say country, which we are going to save. Okay. And we have one property gender that I will add here. Gender. Now these are the property we require in the UI. So now I will add in view model. I will create the property. Okay. For this one, employee ID, it will be int. And here I will say, okay, here I have to create object of model class. So I will create the object of model class here and I will make it as private. And inside the constructor, I will initialize this model. Okay. Now I will use that model emp id. Now I will set the value of emp id dot emp id equal to value. In the same way, I will add all the property in the view model. For emp name, we'll have emp name string. I will add address first, address, and then address. Okay, again copy paste. Then for country we will have country, and country. Okay, now we left with two property, gender. So here I will not create gender property because for gender we have radio button. So I will create two property here for each checked of that radio button. So in the view model I will create two boolean property to bind with each checked of that radio button. Let's create it. Now you may have question why this model is private, right? You know, View don't know about model, right? So to make sure that model is not accessible to View, we make it private. I will make this class as public so that we can access in the View. And here also you may have question why we have the full property here and why not here. Here we are using model property, but here we don't have this property. For the gender, we have two radio button, right? So here we have to add the condition like which button is checked, which radio button is checked. Based on that, we will make this change the value of gender. Okay. So here we have added this, and later we will notify the UI. So we have to add some logic here in set property. And here first I will add the logic if is male selected, then what I will do, here I will set model gender property to male, gender equal to male. In the same way we have to add the logic for female. Let's add, okay, if it is female then gender should be female, right? Now there is one more property left which is DOB. So I will create one property, okay, public date time DOB. Okay, here from get we will return model dot dob, right? In the setter we will set the value. Okay, why I made this setter we will see it later when we are going to implement that INotify property change. Okay, now it's time to bind the data. So what is data binding? Data binding is powerful WPF feature that establishes a link between the UI elements and the underlying data source. In MVVM, data binding connects the view to the view model, allowing automatic updates between the UI and the underlying data. So how to achieve data binding? What are the key components of data binding? There are multiple components of the data binding, which are source, target, and binding expression. What is source? It represents the data source that you want to display in the view. What is target? It is the UI element that display or manipulates the data. What is binding expression? It defines the relationship between the source and target, specifying how the data is displayed or updated in the UI. Now, how to achieve the data binding? To achieve the data binding, we have to set the data context of UI. So now the question is, what is data context? The data context property in WPF is used to establish the relationship between view and its corresponding view model. It enables the binding of UI elements in the view to the property and commands of the view model. Now let's see how to bind the property. To bind the property, as I told, we have to set the data context of view. So here we have to go to code behind of the UI, and in the constructor we will say data context equal to new. What we are going to bind? We are going to bind main window view model property or commands, right? So we will create the object of main window view model. Okay, now we have established the relationship between view and view models. Now we are able to bind the data. So how to bind the data? Now let's go to the UI. To bind the data we have to use binding property. How to bind it? Let's go to text box. Okay, this is the text box. This is text box for employee ID. So what we are going to bind here? We are going to bind text of this text box. How to do that? We will say text equal to, in curly braces, binding and the property name. What is the property name for the employee ID? go to view model and see employee emp id. So I will assign it to this one. Like that, it is binded to the emp id property. In the same way, I will bind for all the text box. Okay. For the name, we have emp name. So I will bind with emp name. And then, okay, first I will bind all text box. For the address, we have address. This is a text block. We are going to bind the text for text box. Okay. Now I will bind date of birth. So how to bind that? Here for date of birth, we have one property called DOB. Okay. So here I will say selected date, then binding DOB. Okay. And for the country, we have the list. So here I will set the item source, and then binding. And what is that list? List was countries. Okay. So I will bind this so that it will show both country here in the combo box. Now I will remove this hardcode value, and also I will close it here. Okay. And for the radio button mail, we have to bind the property is checked. Okay. And here I will use binding. And what is that property for mail? We have is mail selected. Okay. I will paste it here. And in the same way, I will do for female. Okay, that is female. Okay. Now binding is completed. Now let's run. Now I will add some value here, and I will add breakpoint here also in setter, because that value should set right. So I will add this. I will change emp name. Okay, if we click outside, it will update that value. So if you see this value, it is Kumar. Why after going out of that text box it is updating? Because here we have to set update source trigger. By default it is lost focus. We have to change it to property change, so that whenever the property is changed, it will reflect to that property. Like that I will add for all. Okay. Here I don't require here, because I am not going to change anything, but here we have to use selected item, and we have to bind with this property, which is country, and then we have to use that update source trigger equal to property change. Okay. Here also I have to add, so that it will update whenever the property is changed. Now if you see the country, India and US, you can select any of male and female. Like that we can select. Do you think now MVVM is implemented in this project? If you think yes, you are wrong, because we have all the logic here in the UI itself. Okay. So there should not be any logic in the code behind. So for that, what we should do? We should make, for the click event, we should make the command. Now I will show you how to implement the command. Here I will create one folder called commands. Okay. Now here I will create one class which will implement ICommand interface. So I will say WPF world command. Okay. Now here we have to implement ICommand interface. Okay. Which will come under namespace system.windows.input. Okay. Now let's implement it. Implement the interface. Here we have two methods, can execute and execute, and one event handler, can execute change. Now I will write logic for all these method and event handler. Now here I will create two delegates. One is of type action and one is of type func. If you don't know what is action delegate and what is func delegate, you should watch this video. Okay, now let's create it. Now I will add two delegates. One is action, which will use for performing the action like click event. So here whenever we need to pass any command parameter, then we should use this delegate with the parameter object. and here I will say execute. Okay, in the same way func, it will take a parameter and it will return boolean type. So here I will say can execute. Okay, inside the constructor we will assign these delegates. So let's create the parameterized constructor and pass this delegates. First here I will check if that action can be performed or not. So that's why I am using this delegates as a first argument. I will remove this and here I will assign the value of both the delegates. Now here I will return can execute. For that first I will check if can execute is null or not. If it is not null, then call the can execute with parameter. Okay, and in the same way we'll call execute dot invoke and then pass parameter. And for this we have to add one method, public void fire can execute change. I will say fire can execute change. Okay, and from here I will call this event handler with the parameter this event args dot empty. Now our implementation is completed. Now how to use this one? So first I will make it as public so that we can access from anywhere, and now I will create the command for all the button. So let's go to main window view model and create the command. So first I will create command for which button? Register button. Okay, so I will say register command. Okay, and then get and set, add the namespace. And how to bind it? Go to this command, this button, and then remove this click event, then bind command with register command. Okay, now here we have to initialize this command. How to initialize that? We will use as a normal object, we will use this one, and here we have to pass two delegates. First one is can execute and second one is execute. For that we will create register can execute. For now I will say return true. Okay, and for the second argument I will say register and create the method for this one. Now if you run the application and click on register button, then you will see it will hit this breakpoint. I will click on register. See, means this command is triggered, and now we can write the logic for register here. Okay, so I will copy all the code from this UI for the register method and I will paste it to this one. Okay, now we have to change something. Here I am using SQL connection. Later we can use SQLite also, right? So for that we will make it separate. So for that I will create one more folder called DAL, and here I will add the logic for SQL connection and SQLite, all these things. So I will add the class SQL connection SQLDB. Okay, I will add it. Now what I will do here, I will add all the logic for this object creation and this execute query, all this thing we will add there, and then that method we will call from this view model. Let's add it. So for register I will make a method called register. Okay, or we can say save, and then we will have some parameter. Okay, now here I will do this thing. This will be common for all method like save, update, all these things. So what I will do, I will create the constructor and I will create one object of SQL connection outside of this, and then I will assign this. Okay, now I will remove this. For everything we have to open the connection, so that we have to do this thing. Okay, now here is the command for insert. Okay, these are the property what we are going to save to our database. So here I have created the model, right? Main view, main window model. So here I will pass this one, main window model, and I will say main window model, and then here I will save this one. This is employee ID, so I will say main window dot emp id, date of birth I will say dob, okay, and here I will say dot gender. So here we no need to create extra property. I will directly assign this because we don't need to convert anything here. So this one, for the photo URL I am not going to save any photo URL, and then I will remove this. And for the emp name we have emp name. For the address we have the address. For country we have the country. Okay, here I will show the success message if it is successfully saved or not. Okay, so this is how we can use this. So now I will call this method from the view model. This is the one. We'll make this class static so that we can access. We will remove this. What is this one? So here also we have to make it public. Okay, now we can access through the class name. I will say sqldb.save. This is how we can call that method. In the same, I will add command for all buttons. Now I will say get detail. So for that I will create get detail list command, list emp command. Okay, get emp. Okay, and now I will comment this method inside code behind from the get. This I will write in SQLDB class, and I will make it public static. Now I will remove this, and after everything is done we have to close the connection. We should close the connection. Once all things are done, then close the connection. Same thing I will do here. Okay, again I will pass the model object here. Same thing for emp id, like model.emp id, because I want to access the detail of that particular emp id. So here I will update emp name, and now I will set DOB. What is the property for date of birth? So I think it is date of birth. Okay, DOB, and then main window model.dob, and this is about address dot selected or country. If you don't know what is SQL command, why I used SQL command, why I used command dot parameters dot add with value, then you should watch how to connect SQL Server database to develop web application, and also subscribe my channel to get more update. We have to set the gender. So I will say main window model dot gender equal to gender. Okay, now this part is done. Now here we are getting error because date of birth is of type date time, so we have to change it to date time. So here we have to use convert class to date time method. Okay, now this part is done. Now we will call this method from here. Okay, here we have to this one, and then this thing, and here we have to call inside the get method. I will create one method get, and then we have to remove this. This should be the method. I will create one method, generate method, and then in the same way we will call get details. Okay, now let's run and see the result. Now I will add some data. Okay, I will remove this breakpoint from here. and I will add the data here. I will give 10 as employee ID. Okay, here also I have to remove breakpoint. I will remove. Okay, I will disable all the breakpoint. Okay, I will say Kumar. I will say address, and then I will select country India, and then mail. Then I will click on register. Okay, so here we are getting error because it is showing invalid column name. So I think this is the column what we don't require because I have removed from the table. Let's see in table. If you see here, we don't have photo URL, so I will remove this, and then again I will done it. I will remove this one, and from here also. Okay, now let's run and see. Okay, now I will give 10, and then Kumar, then I will say 80, then address, then select the country, then gender, then click on register. So here I am getting photo URL because I think I have not removed from the. Okay, yeah, let's rerun it. Okay, now I will change the value, click on register. See, now it is successfully saved. Now we will see the value of this. Here I will click on new query, then select star from what is table name, employee. Okay, run it. See, this is the one what we added, right? Now we want to get the value of this one with the ID 2. I will give 2 and I will click on get detail. So you can see value is updated here, right? See, same value is updated in UI. Now we will see why we should implement INotifyPropertyChanged. For that I will add one text block to show the message if data is saved or not. So I will add one text box below this one. Okay, let's add it. So I have created one text block here, and I will bind text to the message. Let's create this property inside main window view model. Here I will create one property, full property of type string. I will say message. What I want to do, I want to update this message if the data is saved successfully. So what we have to do, I will copy this message, then I will say message equal to this one. Okay, now let's run and see the result. Okay, here I will give 11 Raj, and then 89 something. Okay, then click on register. But if you see, it is not visible here, right? Here we need to implement INotifyPropertyChanged because we want to update the UI, right? So inside the main window view model, I will implement INotifyPropertyChanged, add the namespace here, and then implement this. Now it is implemented, but here we have to write the code for this property change, like how to notify the UI. So here we'll create one method called void notify UI, and here we have to pass property name. Okay, string property name. We'll make it public. We will check if property change not equal to null. Okay, then call the property change with current instance, and then property change if entered, and then here we have to pass this property name. Okay, we have to create the object of this one. Now our implementation is done. Now the error. Okay, it should be property change. Okay, now our implementation is done. Now we have to call this method in editor. Okay, so I will call here, and here we have to give the property name. What is the property name? We have message, right? But I would not recommend it to use like this, because like this I would not recommend it to use like this, because sometimes we may make a mistake here, right, in spelling, then it will not work. So in that case, what we have to do, we have to use name of, and then we can pass message. Okay, like that. So this is the one thing. Now I will done and see the result. Here I will say 12 hours, address India, mail, register. See, it is updated successfully, right? Now you got why we need the INotify property change. I hope you learn all these things, like what is command, how to bind the command, what is data binding, and also you learn how to implement MVVM pattern in our WPF application. That's all for this video. If you like this video, let's share with your friends.